Hello, my darlings. Hello, my honey buddies. Hello, my fellow transurfers. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Beauty. This is episode 354, and in today's video, I am continuing with populating my 58 or more video series playlist by reading aloud a translation that's gone from the Russian to the Arabic to English of Hacking the Technogenic System by Vadim Zelen, who brought transurfing to the universe. Now, we hope that Vadim translates his book to English very soon, but until he does that, we will talk about it in English from other translations with the personal efforts of my friends Mahil Jawara and Theodora Salvia, who took it upon themselves to take on the task of sharing its wealth of knowledge, particularly during this time in our human history. So I'm doing my part to share this invaluable information that can be integrated into knowledge and further integrated into wisdom. So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and allow me to read to you chapter 25, titled Mom Ate the Porridge Meal. So before we continue, we must clarify the following situation. What are we doing here and what goals we seek to achieve? Now, I do this from time to time because we have more and more readers and they only know the first principles that they are familiar with from the Transurfing Reality book. Reality is not understood by all newcomers. Where are they, and what is going on here is not clear. And I have published this chapter and the previous chapter on my website, namely zelens.ru. Now, the number of people who entered my site and read the article has exceeded 40,000 visitors, which is a very large audience, and only few magazines released so many copies. Among the attendees were well-known personalities, such as art stars, politicians, businessmen, students who are still in their beginnings, and also retired people for whom life has just started now that they have come here. Now, the heart of the matter is that readers' number is not decreasing, but it is increasing every day. And this confirms that the topics we are discussing have caught your attention and deserve your attention. Getting the attention of such a number of people is never easy, and maintaining it is a much more complicated matter. And yet, I have succeeded until this day, and it has been 9 years since I published my first correspondence in February 2003. Okay. What makes even more difficult to maintain attention is that the effectiveness of blocking and seizing energy and consciousness has increased and become more and more evident in recent times. This is what I have highlighted in my previous articles. The consciousness of the individual in terms of structure, although it's a free consciousness, at the same time, it cannot always remain free and hovering or suspended in the air, but it must have solid ground to stand on. It's like a bird that must have a branch to sit on. If religion was able to form such a platform at the beginning of the evolution process, the initiative steadily passed to the mother system and main system in which the energy is formed. It is notable, of course, that the new reality is changing at a very rapid pace, and in 2003, the situation was completely different, and so the transurfing was different. It is a relief that many have realized as fact, according to the messages I've received. But at the same time, there are those who still live that illusory optimism, and they are acting according to the principle that says this works and gives a result, and the rest is not important. But the heart of the matter is that the previous transurfing, which is the classic transurfing, is no longer working same as before. And if we will not take the current modern characteristic into account, optimism will disappear and the out of control reality will return. So events will take place according to their own will and without caring about what you want or do not want. Based on this, I must be patient and answer from time to time similar and unsatisfactory questions. Unsatisfactory because a person may be under the illusion that he is medically and mentally healthy, but in fact his energy and consciousness are prey and under the siege of the global order. What is the use of transurfing if a person imagines reality in a distorted image? Question. But Steve Jobs was one of the greatest pioneers of the technogenic system, right? There is a big difference between those who manufacture devices that facilitate the work and needs of people and those who manufacture the atomic bomb, as an example, or ready-made meals. It is necessary for a person to distinguish between these things. Do you want to give up your mobile phone or computer? Yes, it is one of the products of the technogenic system, but we are talking here not about escaping from the system. We are talking about using it to serve us in a rational and conscious manner and without being dependent on this like slaves. Question. Steve Jobs doesn't eat meat, and yet sickness attacked him. Isn't it true? How weird you are. Is there anyone who claims that whoever does not eat meat does not get cancer? Question. Hello, Vladimir. I've been reading your book for a long time, and I read your correspondence regularly, and I admit that transurfing has helped and served me a lot, but I still have many questions, such as, why does not transurfing always work? But it only works selectively. Today, I read that you wrote about the death of Steve Jobs, and I want to express my point of view on the subject. In one of the television programs, it said a lot about his biography. And they said, for example, that he traveled to India after completing his university studies and then converted to Buddhism and then became a vegetarian. Answer. Since you called me Vladimir, as you called Steve Jobs, I can conclude from this that the technogenic system has captured your attention so powerfully because you failed to capture the essence of what I wanted to convey to my readers. It is not plant food that prevents cancer, but it is the living natural food, and they are two completely different things. And I had written about this in previous transurfing books and in bold black font on a bright white page in order for everyone to see and understand. And in spite of that, you did not see and did not understand. And for this particular reason, the work of transurfing has appeared to you as a selective thing. The amount of such letters is not small, and therefore we cannot say that this is due to absenteeism or temporary inattention, because nowadays there is an entire generation of young people suffering from lack of attention. Do you know why they made the national examination system? It was not the result of a state of short-sightedness, but it is a natural necessity because only a few young people today have the competence to think clearly and formulate their ideas and present them clearly. Imagine how an exam could be passed by a sleeping student. Is this possible? This is possible only if he is given very brief questions and answers are suggested to be chosen because the student here is unable to formulate his words in an understandable and coherent manner, but he is still able to give some signals and show simple reactions. Obviously, I'm exaggerating this, but in fact, the situation is really just like that. But attention trapping is only half the problem, and the inherited mental inventory narrows the limits of perception. It hinders the vision of reality as it is. People saw the plane for the first time, but they only imagined it as a flying vehicle. Saw the train, saw it as an iron horse. And I am talking to you about living food, which is not necessarily vegetarian. And you imagine I'm talking about vegetarian food. When the mass media and the means of transportation appeared, the inherited mental stock, it became widespread in people's awareness and with a stronger effectiveness, and it became firmly established there. It is at the heart of the technocratic system. Consciousness has been clearly frozen under the pressure of the global system and the latter, broadcasting through the ether only what works in its favor, and if something manages to leak, it will not reach social consciousness or it will be absorbed in a distorted modality. Certainly, I will soon find myself compelled to explain the meaning of each word or to write as they write in children's books. My mother washed the frame. Masha ate porridge. However, despite this, there will be few people who understand these simple things, but in an upside down way, such as my mother ate the porridge machine, or my mother washed the porridge, and Masha ate the frame. Now, we will summarize the rest of the chapter through the following points. Number 1, I realized a long time ago that a person cannot explain to everyone, and there will always be someone who does not understand. Here, we are relying only on those few who understood that despite the similar vocabulary, the talk here is not about healthy nutrition. Wellness here is a side effect, never a goal. And I think that talking about wellness and nutrition in general is not an interesting talk at all. So I always keep in mind that this is never a popular topic. Again, someone might wake up now, as usually happens in a school classroom, and ask me, but what are you talking about? If I wanted fame, I would have stopped discussing these complicated matters. But I have gotten used to looking at reality right in the eyes, according to my assessment, and it's been many years since I released my first books, so I can now draw conclusions. About 5% of people, no more, are competent to accept transurfing, and the remaining 95% don't even have the efficiency to be close to the shelves on which these books are placed. And from those 5%, only 10% have the competence to understand what we are talking about in the transurfing books. It seems clear that our floor will narrow more and more. I bumped into other statistical information, and it caused me more anxiety, which is that only a few people who have learned the basic principles of transurfing have ever succeeded in understanding this knowledge. And I find it difficult here to give a specific number. And the majority did not understand practically anything, and this knowledge did not play any role in their lives. And I can judge this situation by the letters that I receive, and if there are no books about the topic. Do I have to mention everything from the start? But why? You know the secret, so what more do you want from this? Number 2, I could have gone the classic route of explaining, and re-explaining the principles of transurfing that should be understood. But in this case, it would be the unrealistic transurfing. Well, why do you not understand what must be understood? This means that there are still aspects of reality that have not been clarified before. And at the same time, this reality is changing in front of our eyes in the literal sense of the word. Number 3, from the letter of one of the readers, whoever adheres to the natural diet, he understands transurfing differently. In the past, I used to read and imagine that everything was understandable, but I was feeling a little lethargic, as if something was wrong. And now I read between the lines, and I can lure all the events I want into my life. And here I lure the events in the literal sense of the word. So what is here to talk about? Is it about healthy nutrition? Of course not. And also not about raw food per se. As you can see, I am far from hardline positions on these topics. Here, we must separate between the goals and the means. When the goal is to reduce weight, for example, or get rid of certain diseases, talking about the means is completely different. The vocabulary may be similar and the topics are similar, but the goal here is completely different. Did you realize the difference? Then, based on this, the goal will be different, as will be the path. What we are talking about here, you will not read about and you will not hear about anywhere else, because the goal does not exist within the framework of stereotypical norms. But the goal here is to get out of the general line and act freely, and also be free from the state of collective hibernation. And this is the nature of the goal, and this is exactly what we are talking about. And here lies the essence. At least, or as a start, we should stop resorting to what is customary, because what is customary and what is used directly is what causes a person to plunge into a state of mass hibernation. Number 4, what touches the human body and mind directly is food, information, and conditions. In the same direct way, human consciousness is formed according to these factors. The global system does not have any other means to influence human consciousness except through food, media, and the conditions of the external environment. And for this, we must not look at transurfing from the classical aspect only, which is how we think. And for this, and in order to complete the picture, we need two other components: how we eat and how we move. We notice now that there's a sharp media orientation toward the technical environment, and the largest amount of information specifically reflects the interests of producers and traders and the political and financial structure in general, and these are the interests of the technogenic system. Number 5, the goal of the technogenic system is to place the human being within the framework of the mother stereotype or the matrix, to erase his personality as a social individual and to extract the general standard from his personality in order to transform him into a deficient individual. To achieve this goal, disinformation and biased information are used as widely as possible. So in this case, one's mind does not need to be healthy in order to not have free energy. And it must also be something penetrating in order not to realize where it stands. The goal of the social individual is to preserve his freedom, independence, uniqueness, energy, ability to perceive, and his health. Only people who had enough courage to leave the general line could sustain all of this, and the supporters of the technical environment are waiting only for them to be united without exception, to lead them to one line and to put them at the service of the global system. Do not think, dear reader, that this is just a fantasy. How can we avoid the process of consolidation? The first and main step we have to take is to break the principle of the social incubator and never believe that if all of them think and act this way, then it is the right thing. Get out of the general queue and stop walking behind the success of others as a substitute for your own success, and thus go toward your goal. What you get when you do that? Whoever leaves the general queue and follows the path that he had chosen for himself will obtain the following advantages: sees from afar where all the others are heading, gets rid of social incubators, tangles, and pre-made convictions, and learns to see what others do not see and understands what others do not understand. You stop striving to be the first and you work to be unique. Number 6, why is this? And is it necessary? Well, each person decides for himself whether this thing is necessary or not. But if you lack preference and talent, then you have no other way but to get out of the general queue in order to give yourself the opportunity to be unique. And if we look at the rapid changes taking place in the current reality and the trend toward reaching the moment of total unification, we can assume that in 5 to 10 years, the situation will become very funny. But only the people who come out of the general queue and stood and watched the situation of others would feel the real pleasure. Number 7, in the language of those with knowledge, there is called stalking. Imagine that you arrived at your place of work or to the institution in which you learn, and there is a collective hibernation, and all of them are in this hibernation striving to achieve success, but are moving toward their goals like the person who moves in a dream, and only on the level of common algorithms and common instincts. And there you too appear to have a desire to excel and achieve some success and get out of the general queue. But how would you do that if you were just an ordinary snail and walking in the general queue and were not distinguished from others either by your consciousness or by your energy? Today, everyone is educated and they all know the secret, and you also know the secret. Well, then what? Do you have an advantage that others do not have? No, you have no advantage, and therefore your chance of success is very slim. Now imagine a different scene, and your consciousness is free, floating and clear, and your energy is twice as big as the others, and you no longer think like everyone else thinks or act as everyone else does. Here you quit the general queue, but did not leave it. You pretended to be in hibernation, but you actually are awake. It is now very clear to you that those around you are all asleep and you alone are awake. Then the stalking begins, managing and directing your daydream. In this dream, you are the master and the one who commands and forbids. And now you're on the next level of transurfing, and it is the level that gives the real advantage. And here, I will not be able to explain the concept of stalking, and for a very simple reason, which is that it is a concept that is difficult to explain, but we must only grasp it. Do you have the competence to wake up in reality the same way you wake up in a dream? This requires you, first and foremost, to cleanse and purify your consciousness and thus raise your energy level. Live nutrition is not the main topic here, but only one aspect. But this thing is the one of the first steps in the technique of stalking. You can pretend you're a normal psychopath and don't take any pills. You may spend the night in the stable, pretending to be in the herd and like the others, understand, and pretending to be just like the others, but you take what you personally desire and not only take what they throw in front of you. My duty is to carry the logical knowledge with all vigor to those who want to understand, assimilate it, unless everything will become vague and confused, but not for everyone, of course. Number 8, consciousness cannot remain in a state of free flight or suspended in space, but it must have solid ground to stand on, like a bird that needs a branch to stand on. Number 9, if since the beginning of time, religion has formed a solid ground on which people stand, the initiative now moves stealthily, but steadily to the system in which energy is formed. Number 10, the current reality is changing with great acceleration. Number 11, with the advent of mass media and means of transportation, the inherited mental stock has become more effective in penetrating awareness and has also become entrenched and more stable there. Number 12, what is known and what is used directly is precisely the thing that plunges into its collective hibernation. Number 13, the amount of information reflects the interests of producers, traders, and the political and financial structure in particular. That is, the interests of the technogenic system in general. Number 14, the goal of the technical environment is to place man within the mother stereotype. That is to erase his personality as a social individual, as well as to extract the general standard from his personality to turn him into an individual deficient in reasoning. Number 15, the goal of the social individual is to preserve his freedom, independence, uniqueness, energy, ability to perceive safety and health. Number 16, you should at least, or as a start, stop using what is customary. Number 17, break the social incubator's principle and never believe that if they all think and act this way, then it is the right thing. Number 18, stop walking behind the success of others as a substitute for your own success and thus move toward your own success. Human consciousness is constantly subject to scheduling. Do as I do and go with the patterns and ready-made goals. Produce and consume everything that is produced and consumed in the system and do not want anything else, but only what the system gives you. Always be in touch and interact with all the frequencies of the internet because they all do that, and always be in the system because in the end, everyone does that. And you know, if they all think and act this way, then this means that it is the right thing. This is, in short, the code that is implanted in consciousness. Okie dokie. All right, my loves, that is my speech. I hope you enjoyed my reading of chapter 25. Next up, my read of chapter 26 titled Living Water. So until next time, my beloveds, my beautiful transurfers, here's to love, truth, and beauty. Mwah!